'Cause nobody does it like you. I like the way that you move. That's why I never go through with leaving you.
Hello, Miss Sophia. My name is Zoe Calista Abigail. I'm from 11-3 and I am absent 36. In this video, I'll be reviewing the materials personal letter and analytical exposition text in two different infographics that I have made for these specific materials. The first one is personal letter. Personal letter. So, what exactly is this material about? A personal letter is an informal communication between two people who know each other, such as friends or family, and it is commonly used to share personal information, feelings, and experiences. Uh, the purpose of personal letter is to build and maintain relationships with people you are close with, like I mentioned, such as friends and family, by sharing this personal information, thoughts, and feelings in an informal way. The language features usually used in personal letter are divided into two sections. The first one is sentence structure, which complete sentences are expected with accurate grammar and optional slang. And use of contractions and personal pronouns such as she, he, it, etc., and use of active voice. Now, the style itself depends on the writer, but usually personal letter tend to be informal and warming and has a natural and conversational style. Personality is evident through the writing, and personal letter also has varied sentence length. The language may be personal, like first and second person pronouns, and the person written to is mandatory to be included, so that the personal letter addressee will be identified. Now, the structure itself is actually complex, so I decided to divide it into 5 sections. The first one is heading, which features the writer's address, the date to indicate when and where the letter was written. Next is salutation. The salutation is the greeting used to open the letter and address the recipient directly. They start off like, hi, blah, 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 how are you doing? Or maybe something similar to, I forgot to write you a letter, but here I am. And the center is the body. The body contains the main message of the letter, usually written in several paragraphs that share stories, thoughts, or information that are shared in a personal and informal way. And then we have closing. Closing is a polite or friendly phrase that signals the end of the letter. Aside from closing, we also have complementary closing that I did not include in this infographic. Complementary closing is something like warm regards with a comma, or yours sincerely, something like that to address the identity of the writer. And then the last one is signature. The signature shows the name of the person who wrote the letter, like I mentioned just now. Now that we have reviewed the overall material of personal letter, we will now switch to analytical exposition text. Now, this is analytical exposition text. This text is a text that presents an opinion about a phenomenon and argues why it is important. Its purpose is to persuade the reader of the writer's idea of a phenomenon. Basically, it's to convince the reader that whatever the writer writes on the text is right, because they have arguments that support their idea. This text also has features that are labeled as significant lexicogrammatical, which this text has features such as focusing on generic human and non-human participants, the use of simple present tense, the use of um, relational processes like linking verbs. Linking verbs will be discussed later, but in short, it is to connect the subject and the additional information. It also uses connectives that I'll also discuss later, and it also uses internal conjunction and casual conjunction. The generic structure of analytical exposition text has three sections. The first one is thesis, which has two sections. The position is to introduce the topic and indicates the writer's position, and the preview is to outline the main arguments that has to be presented. For the second one is called arguments, which the point is to restate main arguments that is outlined in the preview from the thesis. It also has elaboration, which is, of course, to elaborate and to develop and support each argument written and stated by the writer. Last is reiteration, which is a conclusion summing up to the arguments written in the previous sections. I will get into the details from the significant lexicogrammatical features. Only two, which are connectives and linking verbs. The connectives has four sections. The first one is ordering and evaluating. The second one is contrast. My bad. The third one is comparison, and the fourth one is explaining. This is basically the same as conjunksi in Indonesia, but this one is made simpler because it has only four sections that elaborate the use of connectives in analytical exposition text. For the first one, ordering and evaluating usually include firstly, secondly, after, then, finally, furthermore, ultimately, the most important, another important, and most of all. The second one is contrast, which usually include although, however, whereas, on the other hand, yet, unlike. Basically, it's like to highlight a contrast between two things that is trying to be balanced. The third one is comparison, uh, which include also, in addition, as well as near, similarly. It's the same as contrast. It's okay, not same. It's more of like similar to contrast, but this one highlights more on the comparison between two things. And last one is explaining, which by the name itself, this connective section is used to explain a subject or an additional information. Examples are like because, since, as, therefore, thus, hence, consequently, as the result, due to, and etc. Now, we will move to linking verbs like the one I mentioned in the significant lexicogrammatical feature section. Like I said, linking verbs do not express action. They connect the subject of the verb to additional information of the subject. Basically, they act or has a social function as of a bridge between the subject and the additional information. Uh, yeah, it's to support a sentence. The examples are such as am, is, are, was, were, and many more. For example, she is a doctor. The she in this case is the subject. The doctor one is additional information, and is acts like a linking verb for this sentence. Now I will use plural example. I will use, I will use plural example now. We are student. We are students. In this case, we act as the subject. Students act as the additional information. Also, it has s at the back because the subject is we, which is a plural pronoun, which is a plural personal pronoun, and are is the linking verb, is the bridge in this case of a sentence because it's are and not is neither am because like I said before, we is a plural personal pronoun. This is the end of my personal review of the materials personal letter and analytical exposition text. Thank you for listening.